Hi everyone, welcome. This pair of European nightcrawler worm bins are the ones that I'm planning on feeding today. ENC is the abbreviation I use for European nightcrawler. And you can see that they're over in the corner, so that means there's a number of systems that are younger than those bins and some that are older. These particular bins are 87 days of age. Last fed 11 days ago, and I'm kind of hoping that they're due for another feeding because I've got a lovely assortment of delicious foods to give them. So I'm going to get a glove on, get those systems up onto the bench, and we're going to get them fed. So let's get to work. One of the viewers, one of my favorite viewers, asked me one time, what's the deal with opening the bags up and facing the opening up like this? So I guess for me, it seems like in the past when I didn't pay attention to how that was done, sometimes the opening would be facing down, and that means moisture would be collecting under this portion of what is now technically the inside of the bag, drawing worms to go that way in pursuit of the lovely collecting moisture, and then inevitably many of them would just end up in the bag. And I don't think it really ended up being a dangerously dry place for them to be. So I don't think it was really a huge risk to continue to allow that to occur. But I figured, just in case there is that off chance that a worm might go into a bag like that and whatever, be unable to get out, who knows, starve. I don't know what could happen, but I just figured we're going to play it safe, and we're going to we're just not going to give the worms as easy access to the inside of the bag as I had in the past. So the coffee filters that we laid out here as feeding zone indicators have held up good enough to be reused, which is good, because I didn't come down here with any coffee for today. So let's remove some of these top coverings and then we can dig in. It is always kind of cool to see what kind of action you get right above where the foods were placed. There's always a nice deposit of freshly created castings. Usually any bedding that was sprinkled out on top of it will have been nibbled away. I think we're going to follow suit with what I've been doing in almost all my systems, which is to take any sort of leafy matter that would have been left behind, such as what we're seeing out here on the surface, and integrate it into the bed. But that'll just occur as a matter of course as we excavate and we dig around, because one of the things I'll often do is when it comes time to covering up the feeding zone, I'll usually reach out to the outer edges of the system in order to get material with which to cover up. And while that's happening, all the stuff's getting tilled up and mixed around, and all the leaves just end up down within the bed. So we'll get there pretty much on its own. It'll get there, I think. So what have we here? Okay, now I'm remembering. I didn't really take a lot of time to watch the video from last time, but I did skim through it quickly, and now I'm reminded of the fact that we had at some point fed chestnuts. And what I did there, you might have heard it, there was a little bit of a crack. I did pretty much crack the chestnut shell at this point so that it's much easier to open. Previously it had been very difficult to open it because it was very taut. I must have just broken away the portions that were providing resistance. And each system got a whole chestnut, and here's just one example of it. And I can't remember if it was here or maybe here. We had a heck of a time. I even saw it in the video afterwards, but I didn't see it in person. I kept looking and looking for that one chestnut in bin number 2 that was the whole one, because each one got a half and a whole, and we found the half one over there. It was popular in both systems, and I think even the whole one over here was pretty popular too, with worms getting down into it to enjoy the yummy insides of the chestnut. As far as the last feeding goes, whatever it was, I'm definitely catching a little sense of it. A little bit of an aroma of something still in the process of breaking down. But since I didn't take the time to really thoroughly go through the footage from the last check-in, I really didn't get a good sense of what was put in here as food. Although I do remember little chunks of stuff, which in a way, excuse me, in a way it did remind me of maybe melon chunks or something. If that was the case, I don't think melon chunks 11 days later would still be showing up as leftovers. Might have been something else. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll bump into something along the way which will remind me, rekindle my little brain cells into remembering what we fed last time. But chances are it was just sort of a somewhat routine feeding. So here, finally, the elusive whole chestnut from bin number 2 that managed to roll around just out of view and provide me with a little bit of frustration last time since I couldn't locate it. It's a pretty good size object. You wouldn't think that finding it would be so tricky. And I guess I was just curious to see if I could peek into this one. This one's kind of tense, tight too, you know, hard to open basically. Doesn't want to just open up and show what's inside. But clearly there's at least one worm over here hanging out on it. I just wondered if there was still stuff inside that the worms might still be attempting to clean out, but after this much time I would think no. Alright. There should be the half of the chestnut, or the half chestnut shell. The remains of that as well in here. And perhaps bin number 2 is just going to be the spot where we never have luck locating things. Perhaps the chestnut shells are going to decide one check into the next and, you know, decide which one's going to allow themselves to get located, and the other one will just remain out of view. So definitely smelling whatever it is that we fed last time. Coming through as a little bit of a leftover scent. Not terrible, but still not the most pleasant thing. So I think we're going to press on with getting these little guys fed so we can backfill and cover up here and not have to smell it for much longer. It's definitely not the typical thing though in a worm bin. Typically what you're smelling is something that can be probably best described, because that's the way you always hear it described, best described as smelling a little bit like the forest floor after a rain. Because that's just that's what the forest floor is made up of over thousands and thousands of years, is decaying organic matter and all the stuff that goes along with decaying matter, like what's going on in these systems over here. So that was a pretty generous application of bedding. And every batch of bedding that I create has moisture content to it. I mix in leaves, I mix in moisture, and you know what? My camera is complaining about batteries being low. So I'm wondering if we could outrun the end of the batteries running out. I've had this happen too in another video, perhaps just the other day. Can't even remember when it was, but it wasn't long ago. Yesterday or the day before. So I think we've distributed the food evenly. Let's just wrap up over here with just a little bit of pulverized eggshell as grit, and we'll follow through with this concept of blending in leaves nicely in the process of covering up the feeding zones. Get back the feeding zone indicators, top covering materials, and perhaps I won't need to run upstairs to get another battery and we could just get this job done. Alright, well, I'm not sure if we're making it, but let me really quickly say thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.